196 million. Does that number mean anything to you? At least one person was willing to admit that they know what that number is. 196 million for a small $2 investment. You could win you could have won yesterday $196 million. I don't know whether anybody won it or not. If they didn't, then next Wednesday it'll probably be 250 million, and there will be a run on lottery tickets. And it's kind of interesting to me that we are so interested in buying a lottery ticket to take that minuscule chance of winning when the number that we could win is 200 million, as though for the average person winning 20 million wouldn't dramatically change their life. I mean, how many of you would like to have $20 million? Just about all of us would like to have it. Would it really make much difference, do you think, if you, from where you are now, got 20 million instead of 200 million? Either way, it's like way more money than you can think of. But nevertheless, in this American dream of wealth, when the numbers get high enough, everybody's going to run out to the local grocery store or the local gas station and buy yourself a Powerball ticket. All in the hopes that you could win $200 million. And yet you really don't know what you would do with it. You have this idea in your brain that, well, my life wouldn't be ruined if I won $200 million. I'm not like most of the other lottery winners whose lives are ruined. I can handle it. Newsflash, you probably can't. But nevertheless, we hold on to the dream. It's this dream of prosperity. The dream that we would hit it rich. That we would fill in the blank and we would consider ourselves to be prosperous. But what is prosperity? The dictionary defines it this way. The state of being prosperous, successful, affluent, wealthy, opulence, luxury, the good life, milk and honey. You know, that's really not a good thing for diabetics. Both of them have too many carbs. Just saying. Not sure I want milk and honey because it'll just ruin the A1C. But we want prosperity, fortune, and ease, and plenty, comfort, security, and well-being. The interesting thing is that although the latter half of those, that we would have comfort, security, and well-being, those are included in the concept of prosperity. When most people think of prosperity, they think of cash in hand. It means I can afford to buy that Mercedes-Benz or something like that. Thank you. It was intentional. We live in one of the most prosperous countries in the world, in one of the most prosperous times of history, and yet many of us feel anything but prosperous. We've got Xbox Ones and PS4s and Wiis and computers and laptops and more computing power in your hand right now with your smartphone than they had a couple of decades ago. But we don't feel very prosperous. We don't feel very prosperous because our society is defining prosperity incorrectly. If we really want to embrace prosperity and experience prosperity, no matter what our income level is, then we need to turn to the laws of life, and specifically God's laws concerning prosperity. And you can find that in our passage for this morning, which is Psalm 119, verses 33 and following. Follow along with me. Psalm 119, verse 33 and following. Teach me, O Lord, to follow your decrees, then I will keep them to the end. Give me understanding, and I will keep your law, and obey it with all my heart. Direct me in the path of your commands, for there I find delight. Turn my heart toward your statutes, and not toward selfish gain. Turn my eyes away from worthless things. Preserve my life according to your word. Fulfill your promise to your servant so that you may be feared. Take away the disgrace I dread, for your laws are good. How I long for your precepts. Preserve my life in your righteousness. May your unfailing love come to me, O Lord, your salvation according to your promise. Then I will answer the one who taunts me, for I trust in your word. Do not snatch the word of truth from my mouth, for I have put my hope in your laws. I will always obey your law forever and ever. I will walk about in freedom, for I have sought out your precepts. I will speak of your statutes before kings and will not be put to shame, for I delight in your commands because I love them. I lift up my hands to your commands, which I love, and I meditate on your decrees. This is the word of the Lord. Our gracious Father, as we look into your word this morning, we ask that you would open our heart to you, to what you would have to say to us individually this morning. In the name of Christ, amen. So we're going to look at 6 observations about the law of prosperity from this text. The first is this: true prosperity is not found in stuff. Verse 36, the psalmist says, "Turn my heart toward your statutes and not towards selfish gain." Our society seems to embrace the idea that prosperity comes in the accumulation of stuff. The more we have, the more prosperous we are. The more that we are able to accumulate, the more prosperous we are. Every once in a while, I go to garage sales. And I went to one yesterday. As a matter of fact, I got caught at a garage sale yesterday by somebody in the church. And I was looking at a lawnmower. It seems that my lawnmower has died. Not completely died, but it's on its last breaths. And it's like, it's coughing. And, as soon as it runs fine on the sidewalk, but as soon as I put it on the grass, it dies. I can't figure that out. It's running. Why can't you just do what you're supposed to do? So I'm out looking. I drove by. I saw there was a lawnmower, so I pulled in. They say, "Oh, it's almost brand new." And it didn't really look brand new, but it's almost brand new. But we haven't run it for a year. It doesn't have any gas in it. Doesn't have any oil in it. I said, "Well, I'll go home. I'll get some gas." So I went home, got some gas, brought it over, and so I'm there, and I put the gas in the lawnmower, and then I found out why it didn't have any gas in it, because the gas just poured out the side of the lawnmower. And I thought, I've already got one lawnmower that doesn't work. I don't think I need another one. But I had gas all over my hands. And so I asked the person, "Do you mind if I wash my hands? Because I really don't want to take my hands all over my car. It's going to make my car stink." And the person, she looked at me. Didn't really want to let me in her house. I understand that. I've looked at myself in the mirror. I can be dangerous looking. But nevertheless, she also realizes that it's her fault that my hands stink of gas. And so she first tried to go in and get some of the stuff that Bernie carries, that squirt-on stuff that, she didn't have any. So now she's got to make the awkward decision to let a stranger in her house. And she does. And I come in, and it was probably her mother's house, and they're cleaning out all this stuff. The house is virtually empty, filthy but empty, and not really empty because there's just junk all over the place. By junk, I mean the person's accumulation of stuff. They're symbols of prosperity. If you go to a garage sale, what you find is all the things that people worked hard to accomplish, to get, all that stuff is really just landfill. And that's the way it is in your house. I know you don't want to believe this, but that's the way it is. When my parents died, my mom finally passed away, the family gathers, my 2 sisters and my brother and I, we gather, and we got all this stuff in the house, and we're dividing up the spoils, so to speak. So anybody want the table? Let's see. I have a table. Don't need another table. We went through, basically, when you die, your kids get rid of your stuff. It's just stuff. It's not a symbol of prosperity. At the very best, it's a symbol of living life. And unless you buy stuff that is so outrageously better than anything your kid's going to accumulate, they're going to have to sell it at a garage sale. Or give it away. Or take it to the dump. True prosperity, my friends, is not found in stuff. That's why the psalmist says, turn my eyes away from selfish gain. That's essentially what stuff is. I want to have pretty things. True prosperity is not found in stuff. Second thing I observed from the next verse, verse 37, true prosperity is not found in experiences. He says, turn me away from selfish gain and turn my eyes away from worthless things. Now, okay, this is a little bit of a stretch because the heart of the message has come later, but, I started thinking, turn my eyes away from worthless things. And I thought about a comment I heard quite some time ago about somebody who said, why would I bother looking at National Geographic? It's just a bunch of pictures of places I'm never going to go. It's just pretty stuff, pretty things, experiences. And in our society, there's a trend nowadays to say, buy a cheap house and invest in experiences because experiences are what really matter. A true sign of prosperity is that you have better experiences. And so for a mere $250,000, you can take a ride in a spaceship. And all your friends will say, what are you, an idiot? No. It's experiences. And our society says you ought to embrace the experience. As a matter of fact, we do that on all economic levels. We do it from the upper 1% or 0.5% down to the people who don't make hardly any money. The other day I was driving along the road and I got to the corner of 5th and Pitkin, and there was a guy with a sign, the cardboard sign, and he had put on a sign. He thinks this is funny. I thought this was really a sad commentary on life. He said, let's be honest. I need, what do you think came next? No, beer was too creative. It was, I need weed. It's legal in our state, so why not? Just ask people to give money for, and I drove away thinking two things. First of all, there is no way on God's green earth I'm going to give you money to buy weed. Second, I thought, but people will. What I'm thinking is go get a job and find another way to please yourself, to be happy. Like maybe meet Jesus. You can run after experiences no matter what your economic level is. You can run after experiences hoping in this false idea that this is going to make you prosperous. Because, the rich people get to have cell phones. The rich people get to have big screen TVs. The rich people get to have these symbols which we say are prosperity but really are just traps. True prosperity is not found in stuff. It's not found in experiences. And it's also not found in your self-confidence. It's not found in yourself. Look at verses 41 and 42. These two verses have to be taken together. First in verse 41, he says, may your unfailing love come to me, O Lord, your salvation according to your promise. So verse 41 is really a prayer. He's asking God to meet him. He's asking God to show him his love. And then he says, as I understand your salvation and your love, then, on the basis of your unfailing love and your salvation, then I will answer the one who taunts me, for I trust in your word. True prosperity is not found in standing your ground. True prosperity is not found in being able to say, I'm a self-made man. True prosperity is found ultimately in seeking our salvation in the Lord and having confidence in Him. And so maybe what we ought to be looking for is not self-confidence, but God-confidence. Our society seems to want to applaud those who stand up and they're the people who always know the right thing to say. The stuff that we think, oh man, 3 hours after we've had a little argument, think, oh, that's the perfect response. I wish I could go back. Yeah, that's happened to you guys? Somebody says something and you can't think of what to say and you sort of walk away with your shoulders slumped and then, oh, that's what I should have said. That sense of, if I just had the self-confidence to think of that faster. You know what? The psalmist says, true prosperity is not found in self-confidence, it's found in God-confidence. That you would have His salvation, that you would have His word, that He would, on the basis of that, be able to help you stand up and respond to those who taunt you. True prosperity is not found in stuff, it's not found in experiences, it's not found in self-confidence. True prosperity is found in a relationship. Remember, we're looking at Psalm 119 through the lens of a man who wants to develop a strong relationship with God, not a man who wants to develop a strong relationship with the law. Many times we read this because the law is referred to so often in Psalm 119, and we think it's all about the law, the statutes, the decrees, the word. That this is the psalm that bores you to death because you got to think of Leviticus. But what the psalmist is really trying to do is enhance and develop the strength of his relationship with God. And in this passage, he specifically uses the language of relationship. Look through the passage. Begin with verse 33. He says, teach me. Verse 34, give me understanding. Verse 35, direct me. Verse 36, turn my heart. Verse 37, turn my eyes. Verse 38, fulfill your promise. Verse 39, take away the disgrace that I dread. Verse 41, may your unfailing love come to me. This is not the language of law. This is the language of relationship. True prosperity ultimately comes in a relationship with God. The things which are really going to give us security and comfort and well-being, the things which are really going to give us the good life, are the things which come out of a relationship with God. These words of relationship work their way throughout all of Psalm 119, where the psalmist is asking for a mentoring relationship with the Creator. So he says he says things you might say to somebody if you wanted them to coach you or teach you something. He's a teach me, direct me, give me understanding. I want more than just head knowledge. I want that full body understanding of why we're doing what we're doing. Turn my heart, turn my eyes. This is the language of somebody who desires a closeness with his Creator. Not a closeness with the law, but a closeness with the Creator. And out of that relationship with the Creator, we gain strength, security, comfort. We gain prosperity. True prosperity is found in a relationship. And it is also found in freedom. Look at verses 44 to 47. I will always obey your law forever and ever. I will walk about in freedom, for I have sought out your precepts. I will speak of your statutes before kings and will not be put to shame, for I delight in your commands because I love them. As I developed this message, I saw this kind of these two things happening in this message. The psalmist on the one hand is making these prayers, teach me, give me understanding, direct me, turn my heart, turn my eyes, fulfill your promise, take away the disgrace which I dread, send me your unfailing love. And then on the flip side of that, he says in verse 33 and 34, I will keep your commandments, I will obey you in verse 44, I will answer, verse 41, I will walk, verse 45, I will speak, verse 46, I will delight, verse 47, I will meditate, verse 48. So on the one hand, he's asking God to develop this relationship and to draw him close. And on the other hand, out of that relationship, he's making commitments that he's going to live a life which is lived in accordance with the laws of life. And out of that, he gains this freedom. True prosperity is found in freedom. Now, we have this idea that true prosperity is found at retirement. That as long as you've worked well enough, invested well enough, and then you can retire, you are free. I actually know a person who retired at the age of 45, and I've lived next to this person for 17 years, and he's got to be one of the most miserable people I know. You know, he's maybe in his mid-70s now. You know, the guy's been retired for longer than he worked, and he's got nothing. He's got nothing worth living for. So he goes for a shuffle every day. Some of you go for a walk. He goes for a shuffle. He's dragging his feet. He's got nothing. It's interesting. The Bible only mentions retirement one time. In some place in Numbers. I forget exactly the passage. Pastor Andrew probably remembers it because he's looking forward to that day. I'm not sure he's looking forward to the day I retire or when he retires. But it's only mentioned once in Scripture, and it's mentioned about priests. The only time it mentions retirement, it mentions priests retiring. That's kind of interesting. And it says they're supposed to retire at the age of 50. It doesn't tell the rest of us we're supposed to retire. That's a kind of an American thing, a Western world thing, but it's okay. But we've confused the idea of stopping our normal 40-hour work week with prosperity and freedom. What God says is you can be free right now. You can be free right now because of a relationship with Jesus Christ, and you can have that relationship which ends up in giving you an incredible freedom even though you have to go to work every day. It's the difference between living to work, that is, you get up in the morning, you go to work so that you can one day not work, or working in order to live. So you go to work in order that you might live your real life. And God would have you go to work in order to live. God would have you go to work so that you can do His work. And out of that relationship, you would do the things which He talks about here. Answering, obeying, walking, speaking, delighting, meditating. The true freedom is not reaching retirement and having nothing to do. True freedom is finding what God wants you to do and pursuing it with the fullness of life. That you might have wonderful, abundant life, even if you have to go to work every day. True freedom is not the absence of work, it is correctly directed work. And true prosperity happens whether you are at the bottom end of the economic spectrum or the top end of the economic spectrum. It happens when you are living for a higher purpose, when you have met Jesus Christ, when you have developed a relationship which has given you freedom. For Christ said He has come to set us free, to give us an opportunity to live life as it was meant to be lived. And then we have prosperity. True prosperity is found in a relationship, it's found in freedom, and then finally in verse 48 of the text, it's found in worship. It's interesting that the psalmist ends this way. I lift up my hands to your commands, which I love. I will meditate on your decrees. The psalmist really ends with this act of worship. Now, I'm kind of stiff. You know, my idea of clapping during a song is like this. You heard that, right? When I get really excited, almost always on the wrong beat. And when the songs we sing say, I'll lift up holy hands, if I'm really into it, and here's the psalmist saying, I lift up my hands to your commands. Now, most of us don't like commands. We want to have life our way, do what we want. So I was pondering this thought. I lift up my hands to your commands, and I'm watching. Sometimes I turn around and watch people, but then I watch the worship team, and every once in a while, they're doing this. They're lifting up their hands. This is really foreign. Okay, this is hard because I don't do this. I lift up my hands. When you see somebody lift up their hands, what's happening? What is the symbol of? The Germans used to say it, Hand hoch, hand high. And they had a gun at your back. Put your hands in the air. The police say it. It's a symbol of what? Surrender. And when we do it to God, it's a symbol of both surrender and worship. The psalmist says, I lift up my hands. And as I think of it, it might have been better if I had said true prosperity is found in surrender. I lift up my hands to your commands. I surrender, God. I'm going to stop living my life the way I want to live it in order to live it the way you want me to live it. I'm going to live according to your laws. I surrender to you. I worship you. I lift up my hands in total vulnerability. I will not make defense. I will do whatever you want me to do. I will go wherever you want me to go. I will be whoever you want me to be. I will follow your word. I will have a relationship because I want you to teach me and guide me and direct my thoughts. I want you to do all these things, and then I will obey you. I will follow you. I will meditate upon your word. I surrender all. I surrender all. And at the moment we do that, whether we make $12,000 a year or win a $196 million lottery, we find prosperity. Because in that moment, it stops being about us and it's about Him. You can look for prosperity as the world wants you to look for prosperity. You can accumulate stuff. And by the way, if you're on the upper ends of the economic spectrum, there's no sin in accumulating stuff. The sin comes when you make stuff the goal of your life. You can look for prosperity through experiences, but let me tell you, experiences are always going to leave you empty and wanting more unless you have a relationship with Jesus Christ. You can look for your prosperity and self-confidence. You can take classes on how to be a jerk to everybody around. Be self-confident. But you ought to be God-confident. Prosperity is going to come to you when you seek a relationship with your Creator. Prosperity will be yours when you find freedom in obeying His word. Prosperity will come when you worship Him and surrender to Jesus Christ. Laws of life, the law of prosperity. The best thing about prosperity, from a biblical perspective, is that it is available to everyone. You don't have to win the lotto to live a life of prosperity. Let's pray. Gracious Father, Almighty King, Master of the universe, Creator of everything, help us to embrace prosperity by embracing You, the freedom which comes from obeying You. Help us to lift up our hands